What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Touchdown Texas. I'm your host, Shivam Patel. We are here at Clemson Week. The college football playoff is going to be Texas against the Clemson Tigers this Saturday at DKR, the first round of the college football playoff. We here breaking it all down. Unfortunately, my co-host Nick has been feeling sick the last few days, so he's going to be sitting this one out. But in this episode, we're going to give a preview, of the college football playoff, this game, and then also talk about some of the other games, because it's going to be a full packed weekend of games. But we're definitely, I'm excited. This is an exciting time of year for Texas fans. We had a week off. The team was able to recuperate, get fresh, and now we are on to the first game of the first round of the playoffs. So before I get started, I wanted to say, please follow us at touchdown_Texas on our social media channels and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So to get started, first of all, let's just show, according to ESPN analytics, the chance to win the college football playoff. So Texas comes in at number one at 16%, tied with Ohio State as well. Um, Notre Dame is third at 15%. Georgia is fourth at 14%. And Oregon, the number one team in the country, undefeated 12-0, is in at 11%. So just to say, I'm not surprised by these rankings at all. Texas has one of the deepest rosters, in the entire country. We have one of the best quarterbacks, and as well as one of the top premier defenses that went through an SEC schedule, completely dominated teams. They ranked very high statistically in a lot of areas. So there's no surprise that the chances for Texas to win this playoff are very high, because Texas also has a very great route to get to the playoff. If I just want to show the bracket right here, Texas plays the number 5 seed or excuse me, the number 12 seed as Clemson as the number 5 seed at home. Then they'll play the Peach Bowl against Arizona State. Then they'll either play Oregon, Ohio State, or Tennessee in the semifinals. So they have a clear path to the semifinals. But again, they have to take care of business and they have to win, this first game, because usually in a playoff, the first game is the hardest to win. And so this is the first year that we've gone to a 12 team playoff. Before it was just 4 teams, and Texas did make it last year, and they're one of the and they're the only team in the country to make the playoff 2 years in a row, which was very impressive. Alabama didn't make it, Michigan didn't make it, or Washington. So props to Texas for continuing to build upon that success from last year and having a very successful regular season. Unfortunately, it was a tough loss in the conference championship game, but again, you're still a pretty high seed, because and you have a great path in the playoff. So let's preview this game. So again, like I said, the first round is Clemson against Texas. It is this Saturday, December 24th at DKR. So it's going to be a home game for Texas. Clemson, coming to this game having won, the ACC championship game, and they're at 10-3 this year. They started the year, slowly, getting absolutely obliterated against Georgia, in Atlanta, but then they started to catch fire all the way to midway in the season. Then they had some hiccups along the way. They lost to Louisville, then they lost to South Carolina the last game of the season, which was kind of unexpected, and they needed some help just to get into the ACC championship game to qualify for the playoffs. But since Miami lost to Syracuse, they're able to get in. But Clemson is led by their quarterback, Cade Klubnik, who is from Austin, Texas. Having went to Westlake High School. Him and Quinn faced off each other in high school for the state championship game in 2021, and Cade Klubnik's team ended up getting the better of Quinn Ewers. But again, he was a 5-star quarterback coming in. He's in his junior year. He can really beat you with his legs as well as his arm. Like his primary method of running is through his legs. They like to run a lot of RPOs, quarterback runs, zone keepers, but also when teams have to respect Clemson's running game, because they have a really good running back as well, and put 7 or 8 guys in the box, that's when they get the one-on-one matchups with the outside, and Klubnik is able to take advantage of those matchups because he has a great arm and he's very accurate. Clemson has great wide receivers. Brian Wesco, another Texan, TJ Moore. They have a great tight end and bearing stool as well. So this Clemson offense is very potent. They can be very dangerous, but they can also be very up and down. So far this season, like sometimes they'll have like a high scoring output, and the next week, they'll struggle to move the ball or get points, or settle for a lot of field goals. So we'll see which Clemson offense we're gonna get, but Clemson's primary strength on their team is their defense. Their defense has been excellent this year. Really doing a great job of shutting teams down. In the ACC, making teams one-dimensional. They are able to get pressure on the quarterback. They've averaged about 3 sacks per game this year, so they're able to get pressure, make life tough on the opposing quarterback. The secondary, is not as good in my opinion as their defensive line and their linebackers, but they play well enough and they complement one another, very well. This isn't the same Clemson team. I just wanted to say that that won that 2 championships, I believe, in like 4 years. Not very long ago, like 5 or 6 years ago. They were one of the top dominant teams in the country. They're not that same way right now, because Dabo Swinney, their coach, has not really adapted, to the college football current landscape of going into the portal. He's focused more on high school recruiting, but they've not been recruiting the same. In the past they would have like 5 or 6 first round picks just on their defensive line group, but they have talent on their roster, don't get me wrong, but they don't have the same kind of impact players as they did, high draft pick players that they did in the past. But again, like I said, their defense is still very strong, and they dominated, throughout the ACC. So some players to watch, on their defense. I gave you some key players on their offense, but let's talk about the defense a little bit. TJ Parker, he's an edge. He creates a lot of havoc, and he's able to get to the quarterback. He's had a very strong year this year, some big games, throughout the season, as well as their big number 11 defensive tackle Peter Woods, who was a big time recruit. He's always living in the backfield. He may not have the sacks, statistically, but he's always in the backfield creating, havoc, and really putting a lot of pressure on the opposing team. So Texas needs to do a great job of, blocking those guys. So now I want to talk about first, the Texas offense, going against the Clemson defense. So the Texas offensive line has been really playing well this year. Hopefully we get Kelvin Banks back, who's been out. He left the A&M game early, and then he didn't play against Georgia just as a purely precautionary reason, but he has an ankle, and he won the award for one of the top offensive linemen in the country, and he said that he really wants to play and that he's feeling a lot better. And we're going to need Kelvin Banks. He's a left tackle. He's one of the best players offensively, for Texas, and he sets the tone, for the team. He does not allow a lot of pressures. He's that steady presence. So we need the offensive line to be able to set the protections, communicate well, and really keep this Clemson defensive line off of Quinn Ewers and give him enough time in the pocket. Because if you give Quinn Ewers enough time in the pocket, he can dice up this Clemson secondary. So it's just a matter of just giving him time and allowing him to go through his progressions and make the accurate throws needed in order to successfully move the ball on this Clemson defense. Also, Texas cannot be one-dimensional. They're going to have to run the ball. Wisner, who had a great game against A&M, did not have as great of a game against Georgia, but again, Georgia's defensive line is, very tough to run against. Clemson is not on Georgia's level. They're a notch below that defensively, but they're going to be tough. So we need to be balanced. We love to run those outside zones. So we need in a zone blocking scheme. So we need to make sure that those lanes are created and the linemen and the running backs are on the same page. And also, I would like to see us run a little bit inside too, because you could tire out this Clemson, defensive line, because like I said, they're very really good, but they don't have the depth. So if Texas could continue to run more plays, keep them on the field longer, wear them out, I think that would be key for Texas to be successful, offensively. For the passing game, the wide receivers did not play as well. Besides Matthew Golden, against Georgia, Isaiah Bond is still questionable. After leaving earlier in the A&M game with an ankle injury. Against Georgia, he did not look right. There were some communication issues with him and Quinn. Hopefully, Isaiah Bond can come back and feel more like his normal self, because they're able to get a little bit of a break for the SEC championship game to this game on the Saturday. So hopefully, he's feeling closer to 100%. But if he can't play, DeAndre Moore is gonna have to step up, make some catches. Matthew Golden, Ryan Wingo. These wide receivers cannot have drops. They need to be able to be on the same page against Quinn. They need to run crisp routes, get separation, from the defensive backs, and give Quinn a avenue to be able to throw the ball. I would also like, Texas to get, Gunnar Helm more involved. He was not as involved as much as against Georgia, and he's more, he's the security blanket for Quinn Ewers. So, have him run some, tight end screens, have him run some, crossing routes. Get him in short yardage situations, because if you get him schemed up in the open field, he can really break tackles, and he can really get those yards after catch, and he can even hurdle somebody. And he's very athletic, and he can get you those extra yards. So I really want to see Gunnar Helm, get involved. You can go back to the screen game more than you in the short passing game than you did against Georgia, because Clemson doesn't have the speed necessarily that Georgia does have, but you need to mix it up a little bit with the screen passes, the intermediate routes, and also throw some deep bombs down the field, because like I said, this Clemson secondary has allowed some big plays this year, and they can be susceptible to those kind of big gains. So I would like to see them mix it up a little bit as well, with the run game. So those are the keys to offense for Texas. And now if we flip it around now to the Texas defense against Clemson's offense, the key is you cannot let Cade Cublet get going with his legs, because he's a gamer, he's a baller, he's a confident player, he's a competitor. The later in the game he gets and the more juice he feels, the more dangerous of a player he can be. So you cannot let him. And the way he can get that juice and get that confidence is if he gets some runs for first downs with his legs. So you need to stop that early. You need to have a spy, either Anthony Hill or one of the linebackers needs to be a spy, for Cade Klubnik, to limit those running plays as much as possible. The Clemson starting running back, Phil Maffa, he's been kind of in and out of the lineup. He's been dealing with an injury all year. So if they're without him or he's limited, that really makes Cade Klubnik the primary running back, for Clemson, and that puts a lot of pressure on him and makes Clemson a one-dimensional offense, which you would like to see, because the backup running back is also, got injured in the ACC championship game, so he's kind of questionable as well. So Clemson is a little bit dinged up, offensively, but you need to stop the gains from Cade Klubnik of running the ball. Put them in long yardage situations on third down, like third down and 8 to third down and 12. When that Clemson has to pass the ball. But if you're in those situations, you have to be careful if you're in a man-to-man defense, because in a man-to-man defense, the defensive backs are turned against the quarterback, so that makes it easier for him to escape the pocket and go take off and run for the first down, compared to if you're in zone, everybody's looking at the quarterback, and you have to just play your zone depending on how close the wide receiver is to you. So just as a precaution for Texas, if you're playing the man-to-man, you still have to have a spy and make sure that you limit Cade Klubnik's running ability, because he's a very dynamic runner, and that gets him going as well through the passing game. Again, if you get pressure, and don't let Klubnik leave the pocket, he's a good pocket passer, but he prefers throwing on the run. That's his specialty. So keep him contained within the pocket. Don't let him have a way out, and that's when he can be susceptible to turnovers. Even though he's not turned the ball over as much this year, the times that he has is when teams have kept him in the pocket and don't give him an avenue to be able to run the football and get to the outside and use his legs. So that's going to be a key, for the defense. Also, get turnovers on this Clemson team. This Cade is not thrown a lot of interceptions, but Clemson can be susceptible into a lot of turnovers, with fumbles and stuff, and you can bait them into interceptions with the changes of the coverages, confusing them a little bit, and getting to their offensive line and making them, like I said, one dimensional and just become a passing team. Because Clemson loves to be balanced, but if you make them strictly a passing team, then they will turn the ball over. And Texas is really good at causing turnovers. They have 19 interceptions for the year, which leads the SEC, which is insane. They've caused plenty of fumbles. Jade Barron, Malik Muhammad. But this is going to be a huge game for the defensive line. That's who I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be watching Alfred Collins. I'm going to be watching Vernon Broden. Anthony Hill. If they, stopping the run and making Clemson a passing team will be the biggest reason why Texas wins this game, and they're projected to win this game. It's like 11.5 point spread. So if Texas takes care of business, we're the better team overall. Offensively and defensively, if we just take care of business, we don't make mistakes, we don't get our own way, we're the better team than Clemson, and we proved it so far this year. We should be able to win this game. Also like to see special teams, really improve, as well. The kicking game, the field goal kicking, Bert Auburn has struggled this year. He's 14 of 21 on field goals after making 19 straight. Last year he was amazing last year. This year he's struggled, so we need to make sure that the kicking game, is sharp, and the punting game as well. We've only averaging like 39 yards a punt. The protection needs to be strong. We cannot allow a block kick like we did against A&M. The gunners and the coverage team needs to be on point and making sure that Clemson's return game is very limited and average, as they've been so far this season. So that's going to be the key as well. But for field goal kicking, on offense, I said this after the Georgia game as the biggest reason we lost in the SEC championship game. We kicked field goals instead of touchdowns. We only scored one touchdown in the Georgia game, and that was not even in the red zone. We need to convert in the red zone. It was a problem last year. It's coming back as a problem this year, especially in middle of November to now in December. That's going to have to get fixed, and it's all about execution, both by the players and also the play calling as well. Because I'll repeat what I said after the Georgia game. We were throwing the ball effectively in the middle, not the screen game, but in the middle with those intermediate routes, slant routes, curl routes. But Sark, two straight plays in the Georgia game, he threw fades, to the wide receivers in the red zone, and I did not like those calls, even though they're high percentage throws. The middle game, Georgia couldn't stop, and you took the ball, and you kind of went into Georgia's hands because Georgia likes to defend those kind of plays, and they're not as good defending the middle. So Sark has to be more crisp with the play calling. The players have to execute better. Quinn needs to make better throws, catchable passes. He could not turn the ball over in the red zone, because against A&M, he had two turnovers in the red zone. Against Georgia, I believe he had one or two. So he needs to not turn the ball over. He needs to make smart decisions, know when to throw the ball away and when to take a chance, for your wide receiver. And all areas need to improve, and they've had some time, to figure out what they need to do better in the red zone. And hopefully Sark schemed up some better plays, and the players have been practicing those plays and ready to run those plays better for sure. And the running game needs to be better. The running game in the red zone has not been, as solid as it needs to be. They've been getting these short gains, running on first down, and the second down they try to throw a pass so it's incomplete. So they've been going on these long yardage situations, 3rd and 8 and above and beyond, and those are really tough to convert, especially against good defenses like you against A&M, Georgia, and then this good defense like Clemson. So we need to be more efficient with our plays. We need to execute effectively, and we need to get touchdowns instead of field goals. And that's going to be the key, not only in this game but the playoffs, because good teams in the playoffs that advance score touchdowns instead of field goals. So look for that as another big thing that Texas needs to improve on, coming into this game. So let's give my predictions, for the Clemson game. So my prediction is 27-21. K Klubnik's going to throw a few interceptions. Texas is going to capitalize on those points, or capitalize on those turnovers, converting them into points. Weisner is going to have a bounce back game. He's going to have north of 100 yards. Quinn Ewers is going to be efficient. He's going to throw, I believe, 2 touchdown passes, one to Golden, one to more, and the defense is going to make Clemson one-dimensional, put them in long yardage situations, and they're going to get 4 or 5 sacks, in the game. So that's my prediction. And Texas being an 11.5 point favorite, they're not going to exactly cover, but they're going to win 27-21. So even though Nick wasn't able to be here today, like I said, because he was not feeling well the last couple of days, I still wanted to put his prediction up. He predicted that Texas is going to win 23-16. For some of those same reasons as I just stated. And he also thinks that Quinn Ewers is going to be efficient. He's going to be accurate with the ball, and he's going to have a big game. So look for that to happen as well. So Nick predicts 23-16, and I predict a Texas win 27-21. So again, before we wrapped up this episode, I wanted to talk about the bracket, the college football playoff bracket, and some of the other first round matchups that are going to be taking place, this weekend. So let's start on Friday evening. It's going to be the 10 seed Indiana is going to be traveling in state to number 7 seed Notre Dame. So I'll just talk about this game just real quick, and I'll give a prediction. Indiana, one of the Cinderella teams this year, only one loss this season. That was to Ohio State. They kept it close in the first half, but then Ohio State scored 31 unanswered points after pulling away and winning that game. This is going to be a very interesting game. Notre Dame had a good win to start the year against Texas A&M on the road, but then lost a head scratcher, one of the worst losses of the season, to NIU, Northern Illinois University, at home. But then they ended up running the table and winning the rest of their games, actually dominantly. Yes, they don't play the toughest schedule, but they were able to win their games convincingly. Army, Navy, Georgia Tech, Florida State. So Notre Dame is a team that has gotten better week after week. Riley Leonard, the quarterback, struggled, to start the year, but he's really picked it up. The running back Jeremiah Love is a beast. He's really the catalyst for the offense, and he's been a huge reason why Notre Dame has been very successful this season. They've been throwing the ball a lot better, but their defense has always been good. But they're causing takeaways, so that's been a huge reason for Notre Dame's success. That game is going to be a cold weather game, but it's going to be in South Bend, and that's a hard place to win. So I'm going to go Notre Dame 21-16 over Indiana, but it's going to be it's going to be a close game throughout. But Notre Dame's going to pull away, and Riley Leonard is going to make plays not only with his legs, but with his arm. Saturday morning at noon Eastern time is going to be number 11 seed SMU, who lost in the ACC championship game to Clemson, against number 6 seed Penn State, who lost a close game in the Big Ten championship against number 1 Oregon. This game is going to be in Happy Valley State College, Pennsylvania. I think the weather is going to be crazy, with the snow, and it's going to be very windy, very chilly. SMU was not used to playing in those conditions. Penn State is not an offensive juggernaut whatsoever, but they make enough plays offensively to be able to allow them to move the ball successfully downfield. They have a really good tight end, one of the best tight ends in the country, and Tyler Warren, who's had a crazy year. He's had over 2,000 yards receiving. Drew Aller, the quarterback, he's had a pretty good season so far, making the necessary plays with his arms. He was a 5-star quarterback, from Ohio, and he's really taken that step in his junior year that many expected him to take. They also have two really good running backs in Keytron Allen and Singleton, and that's been a reason why Penn State has been able to move the ball. They're a primary run first team, similar to Notre Dame, but they can make Drew Aller makes the necessary throws needed to move the ball and win the games. But Penn State's defense has been really dominant, this year, led by number 11, Abdul Carter, that's Micah Parsons' old jersey number. He's going to be a high first round pick, this year. So I think Penn State's defense is going to be too much for SMU's offense. SMU has a really good offense in Kevin Jennings and Brashard Smith, but they have not played a defense like Penn State, running through the ACC. They've had a weaker schedule, played, some weaker opponents, even though their offense has been putting up a lot of points. So I think Penn State's defense is going to stifle SMU's offense, and their offense is just it's going to be a low scoring game, in my opinion. I'm going to go 1916 Penn State's going to beat SMU, and but this is going to be a defensive battle, but and in a game that's going to have bad weather conditions, but Penn State's going to make enough plays with their offense, and their defense is going to cause turnovers, of the SMU offense and the quarterback Kevin Jennings. So again, the Clemson Texas is the 4 p.m. Eastern game. On Saturday, we already gave the predictions. Both me and Nick predict that Texas is going to beat the Clemson Tigers. But then the Saturday night game to wrap up, the weekend is Tennessee, who's the 9th seed, at the number 8 seed Ohio State. This is a must-win game. A lot of pressure on Ohio State because their coach Ryan Day, he's been under, on the hot seat. They missed out on the Big Ten championship game by losing the third game in a row to Michigan at home, where Ohio State's offense couldn't do anything. Michigan has a good defense, but still, you have really good wide receivers in Ohio State's offense, and you couldn't do anything against a good Michigan defense. Well, it's going to be the same thing for Tennessee. They have a really good defense, but can Ohio State make enough plays offensively on this Tennessee defense? Will Howard, who had a great start to the year, he's been kind of up and down lately. Can he make the necessary throws, especially if they get into, must needed plays once again, because this is going to be a close game all the way to the fourth quarter. So he's going to be the key, of Will Howard. But he has a really good, wide receiver supporting class. Like I said, one of the best freshmen in the country in Jeremiah Smith. Abuga, who's another awesome, wide receiver. Carnell Tate. They have two great running backs, in Quinshawn Junkins and Travion Henderson. But the Ohio State offense is going to be the one I'm looking at, because their defense is going to shut down, Tennessee. But can their offense move the ball effectively down the field, and can they get touchdowns? Same thing with Texas. Can they get touchdowns instead of settling for field goals like they did against Michigan? That's going to be the key. And can they limit turnovers? The Ohio State offense has been very turnover prone these last couple of weeks. Can they cut down on those turnovers? Because if Tennessee's defense can give their struggling offense short fields, then that's how Tennessee is able to pull off this upset, because Tennessee's offense struggles, to score consistently. Nico is a great, quarterback. He has a lot of talent. He has the measurables. He's 6'6". He has an arm. He's only a redshirt freshman, but he struggles with accuracy. And when you shut down the Tennessee running game with Dylan Sampson, and you make Nico throw the ball just like Clemson, well, they can struggle at times because they don't have the wide receivers that can get separation to be able to make those plays for the quarterback that already struggles with accuracy, and he's turnover prone. So Ohio State has to take care of the ball, has to move the ball on offense. And if they do that, then they can wear down this Tennessee defense. And that puts a lot of pressure, especially if they can get ahead like 14-0, 17-0, even 21-0. You force this Tennessee offense that likes to run the ball, be able to force them to throw and make them one dimensional, kind of like what Texas needs to do to Clemson. And that's can make them, turn the ball over and get them uncomfortable and out of their offensive identity. And that's when Nico has been in tough situations. That's when Tennessee has lost games, when other teams have been able to jump out and get, big leads over them, and forces their offense, who is not built to come from behind. Their team that's their identity is built on defense, and their offense feeds off their defense. Well, let's see if Ohio State at home can it be able to get some points and improve on their offensive struggles that they had against Michigan. And Ohio State's coach has been on the hot seat this entire year, Ryan Day, because he's lost 2 straight games to Michigan coming into this year. And this year, Michigan, we knew was going to be a weaker team than Ohio State. And Ohio State went to the portal. They got a lot of really good players, both offensively and defensively, from the portal. And this was the year they were supposed to beat Michigan. Well, they laid an egg, and their offense laid an egg, especially, and they were terrible. But now there's a lot of pressure on Ryan Day. I believe that Ohio State needs to get to the semifinal or even the championship for him to even feel close to being comfortable, with this job security. This is, there's going to be a lot of, pressure surrounding this Ohio State team, because they're going to be at home in a game that they should win. They have, they should have the better quarterback. They have the better offense. They have a better defense. They just have a better overall team than Tennessee. But Tennessee has been gritty this year. They played Georgia tough. They beat Alabama. They've had some good wins this year, and they were kind of a team that surprised, being a year early, that's in the playoff. Well, Ohio State, when you're at Ohio State, the expectations are to win a national championship, and if they don't feel like you're meeting those expectations of both the players and the coaches, well, there's going to be some heads turned. So let's see how Ohio State's able to react, especially if some things don't go early for them, to start the game. That's why it's imperative for Ohio State, to get to a fast start and put pressure on this Tennessee offense, who has struggled to, come back from deficits. But I think Ohio State makes enough plays. I believe they're going to beat Tennessee 24-14. So again, with the bracket, just show it again. We have Texas winning. I have Texas winning 27-21. Nick has Texas winning 23-16. I have Notre Dame beating Indiana, Penn State beating SMU, and Ohio State beating Tennessee. And so we'll talk about the quarterfinal matchup. We'll give you our predictions once that time comes. But first, we have to get through the first round. And again, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Touchdown Texas. It's a very exciting time. It's game week. Texas plays Clemson December 21st at 4 p.m. Eastern Time in DKR at Austin. We'll be back Sunday, me and Nick, breaking down that game, everything that happened, and hopefully previewing the next game, which Texas would play January 1st in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, here in Atlanta, against Arizona State. But again, we need to focus on Clemson, get through Clemson, because the first round matchup can be the toughest. But once you get through the first round matchup, then that gives the team momentum heading in to the next couple of rounds. But again, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Follow us at touchdown_Texas on our social media channels. And also like and subscribe, to our YouTube channel. And if you like our content, please like our videos. We thank you, everybody, for the support. And until then, we'll be back on Sunday after a Horns win, hopefully. But in hook 'em.